Good morning everyone. My name is JernHao from Tutorial 2 Group 4 and today I will be presenting for question 12.1 which is define leader and leadership and discuss why managers should be leaders. According to Robbins, a leader is someone who can influence others and who has a managerial authority. Leaders can order a subordinate to do something and expect the subordinate to obey it. Whereas leadership is the process of leading a group and influencing that group to achieve its goals. The distinction is that a leader refers to an individual who can lead, whereas leadership is the process of it. Now, why should managers be leaders? There are two reasons, and one of them is that managers make decisions. It is in the nature of the manager's role. A manager has the authority to make decisions. Their role is to command non-managerial employees and expect them to obey, which is why managers should be leaders. And secondly, the four-function approach to management. This approach states that there are four functions in a manager's role. One of them is planning. Managers have to take charge in developing plans and establish goals. Secondly, organizing. Managers have to decide how to structure the organization and allocate the resource. And thirdly, leading. Managers influence others and keep track of other employees' performance. And last of all, controlling. Managers dictate how progress will be measured and evaluated. Notice that in every function, managers always take the lead role in managing the subordinates beneath the manager. Hence, managers should lead in this approach. I will pass on the presentation to the next person. Thank you.
Hello everyone, my name is Leng and I will be presenting the question 12.2, which is based on the behavioral theory of leadership. How does the behavior of one leader differ from that of other leaders? Unlike trait-based approaches, behavior theory focuses on what leaders actually do. There are two main types of leadership behavior, task-oriented and people-oriented. First, task-oriented behaviors focus on getting the job done and achieving goals. Leaders who are task-oriented are directed, structured, and productivity-focused. For example, they clearly assign tasks, set deadlines, and make sure the work is completed efficiently. Second, people-oriented behaviors focus on employees' needs, well-being, and relationships. Leaders who are people-oriented are warm, approachable, and relationship-focused. For instance, they listen to employee concerns, encourage teamwork, and provide support to help employees feel valued and motivated. There are several studies support this idea. The University of Iowa identified democratic, autocratic, and laissez-faire styles. Ohio State for initiating structure and consideration. Michigan studies production-oriented versus employee-oriented behaviors. Finally, the managerial grade measures concern for production and concern for people. Thus, the key takeaway is that leaders differ in how they combine these two behaviors, which creates different leadership styles. Some may focus more on tasks, some more on people, and some balance both. Understanding these behaviors help predict leadership effectiveness and guide leadership development.
Leaders are born, not made. Do you agree? Why or why not? To answer this question, we need a clear framework. Leadership comes from two parts, born and made. On the left side, we have born. Born means innate traits. These are qualities you are born with. For example, natural confidence, courage and assertiveness, social tendencies, and being introvert or extrovert. These traits set your starting point. On the right side, we have made. Made means learned skills. These are abilities you can develop. For example, communication training, decision-making ability, emotional intelligence, and leadership behaviors. These skills determine your growth and your potential. So, leadership is not just born and not just made. It is, let's look at real leaders. They were not born ready. None of them had a perfect leadership personality from birth. All of them used training to become better. Their leadership came from experience, strategy, and communication growth. Good leaders succeed through training and experience, not just innate talent. Let me give you some example. Abraham Lincoln was a shy youth. He practiced public speaking. He became one of the greatest presidents. Steve Jobs had early management failure. He learned leadership. He became a legend. Nelson Mandela had poor social skills. He learned negotiation and strategy. He led a nation. Jack Ma was introvert and a poor communicator. He trained his eloquence. He became a global entrepreneur. These leaders show us that we can grow beyond our starting point. So, let's go back to the questions. Leaders are born, not made. Do I agree? My answer is no. I do not agree with these statements. Leaders are both born and made. Your born trait gives you a starting point. Your learned skills decide how far you can go. If you want to be a leader, do not let your personality limit you. You can learn, you can train, you can grow.
Hi everyone. For question 12.4, I will identify and state the relevant leadership style that is associated with the statement, a leader's effectiveness depends on their followers' ability. In my opinion, the statement just now was explained by the situational leadership theory because situational leadership theory states that no leadership style is universal or the best. This varies with the followers' readiness to undertake the task, which is measured by their ability to carry out the given task. These leadership styles take into account that a leader should modify their behavior, such as using the telling, selling, participative, or delegate styles of influencing people in the context of followers' capability and motivation. This implies that no matter what the leader does, the effectiveness of leadership is ultimately dependent on the followers' skills, knowledge, or confidence to undertake their tasks. When followers are more competent and more devoted, leaders should provide less guidance for tasks. Hence, the statement of the effectiveness of a leader is dependent on the followers' ability is clearly stipulated by situational leadership theory. Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Yves machine number 25006332. Today I'm going to present discussion question 12.5, which is, do you think that most managers in real life use a contingency approach to increase their leadership effectiveness? Discuss. First, for my answer, I think it's yes. And I will answer this question theory by theory. First one is situational leadership theory. This theory describes a matching leadership style to follower readiness, and the readiness is mean ability and willingness. For example, Satya Nadella, as a CEO of Microsoft, he shifted the company culture from know it all fixed mindset to a learn it all growth mindset. Know it all is mean the leader believe their current ability and intelligence are sufficient. However, learn it all culture believe that curiosity is more important than intelligence. He used delegating style for his senior leadership team, including the shift from a window-centric strategy to a cloud-first approach based on evolving market needs. Besides that, second approach is path goal theory. This theory states a leader's job is to assist followers in attaining their goals and reduce roadblocks. For example, Reed Hastings, the co-founder and executive chairman of the Netflix. He is famous for his philosophy of context, not control. This philosophy is mean giving their teams the context and clarity needed to make good decisions instead of trying to control everything themselves. As supporting leaders, he gave their team the context and clarity needed to make good decisions instead of trying to control everything themselves, and also help the employees learn by sharing a lot of information internal, including truth memos where they can comment and ask questions to, to the upper management of the company. And the third approach is Fedler contingency model. This model proposes that effective group performance depended on properly matching the leader's style and the amount of control and influence in the situation. For example, Tim Cook, the CEO of Apple, he acts as relationship-oriented style, using a democratic leadership style, promoting cooperation and consensus among executives for maintaining success of Apple, rather than the wartime style of Steve Jobs.
Hi everyone, now I will explain the 10-point summary of FIFA's case study. First of all, FIFA is not just a sport but a large business. FIFA is responsible for administering the bidding process of the World Cup. Countries all over the world basically bid for the right to host the World Cup. These are the business profile of FIFA, which leads us to the second part, which is the start of corruption. The third point is FIFA's president, Sepp Blatter, was suspected of being involved in corruption when he announced the decision of which country gets to host the World Cup. And he announced that Russia and Qatar can host the World Cup, which people started to suspect Blatter because Russia was a controversial country back then. So, Blatter tried to answer the critics of the corruption scandal by employing Michael Garcia, an attorney, to investigate. At the end, FIFA's ethics committee rejected the report that Garcia made, and they preferred to publish a much shorter report that they made themselves. So later on, FIFA was raided by the US federal authorities in FIFA's annual meeting, and 7 FIFA officials was arrested due to allegedly involved in taking bribes of more than $150 million dating back 24 years, which is at the peak of FIFA's corruption. At the end, FIFA's corruption was starting to get exposed, and Blatter decided to resign after the raids, and he attempted to appoint a successor, Michel Platini. Blatter was charged by prosecutors over financial irregularities, including a disloyal payment to Platini, meaning that both Blatter and Platini are involved in corruption. So, later on, both Blatter and Platini was banned from all football-related activities for 8 years. At last, a new president was appointed in 2016, Gianni Infantino, and Infantino was reformed FIFA to be more transparent and focus on accountability, and he attempted to repair FIFA's tarnished reputation by Blatter's poor leadership. This case study tells us that the poor leadership of Blatter led to corruption, and the corruption at the end led to an entire overhaul of the entire FIFA.
I will be discussing the FIFA case and what it reveals about organizational culture, leadership, and trust. Trust is a fundamental element of effective leadership and governance. However, FIFA experience shows how deeply damaging it can be when trust is lost. As a global governing body of football, FIFA is responsible not only for managing the sport, but also for ensuring fairness, transparency, and integrity, especially in major decisions such as awarding World Cup hosting rights. The large number of senior FIFA executives being investigated and arrested highlights serious cultural problems with the organization. These investigations were not limited to lower level employees, but involved top leaders, including long-serving executives and even the FIFA president. This strongly suggests that unethical behavior is systematic rather than isolated. First, the situation reflects a weak ethical culture. Organization culture consists of shared values and norms that guide behavior. In FIFA's case, bribery, vote trading, and financial misconduct appeared to be tolerated by over many years. The fact that corruption allegedly took place over more than 2 decades show unethical practice has become normalized with the organization. Second, the case demonstrates poor governance and lack of accountability. Despite repeated accusations and internal investigations, senior leaders remain in power. For example, although Michael J. Gracia produced a comprehensive to publish it in full, this decision damaged transparency and led to Gracia's resignation, further eroding trust. Third, there was a clear failure of leadership and tone at the top. Sepp Blatter repeatedly downplayed allegations and dismissed concerns even during periods of intense scrutiny, and leadership theory emphasizes that leaders shape organization culture through their actions. By minimizing allegations instead of addressing them seriously, FIFA deals reinforce a culture where misconduct could continue without consequences. The arrest of multiple FIFA officials in 2015 train marked a turning point, exposing the depth of corruption leading to leadership changes. The appointment of Gianni Infantino in 2016, the introduction of reforms focusing on transparency and accountability were important steps towards rebuilding trust. In conclusion, the number of senior FIFA executives being investigated reveals a culture characterized weak ethics, ineffective governance, and poor leadership. The FIFA current serves as a strong reminder that trust once broken is difficult to restore.
Now I'm going to present the case study question 1212. Of the 8 suggestions for building trust, which do you think should have been the focus for FIFA? Think about Michael J. Garcia report. First thing first, I think the most appropriate building trust is practice opponents. By September 2014, American attorney Michael J. Garcia had compiled a comprehensive 315-page report. However, FIFA's ethics committee refused to publish the complete document, preferring instead a much shorter summary. FIFA created the perception that it was hiding information and protecting powerful insiders. According to the trust principle, mistrust comes as much what people doesn't know as from what they do know. So, what FIFA actually should do? FIFA should release the full complete Garcia report for public, especially for the stakeholder to recover and restore the confidence and trust to the FIFA. And the second building trust is tell the truth. After the release of the summary, Garcia resigned specifically because he believed that the FIFA misrepresent the fact of his investigation. This action breached the trust principle, which is followers are more tolerant of being told something they don't want to hear that and of finding out that their leader lying to them. So what is the consequence? The perception that the FIFA distort the truth reinforced belief of corruption. Once the honesty is suspect, all future statement lost credibility. For the last suggestion is be fair. The World Cup bidding process perceived as unfair and corrupt, where countries expect a fair, transparent process. Allegations of void trading and collusion between certain countries were met. Garcia investigation was meant to assess this fairness, but FIFA committee suppressing the culmination of investigation further damaged perception of objectivity. What's the consequences? The reputation of FIFA will decline because of the favoring those allegedly briefs over those who with the best and highest bids.
Hi everyone, now I will explain the answer for question 1213, which is what does the case say about Blatter's style of leadership? In my opinion, I think Blatter's style of leadership was autocratic. Autocratic style refers to the leader dictating the work methods, centralizing decision making, and limiting participation. In simpler terms, the leader has a say in everything. So what exactly makes Blatter's style autocratic? What are the characteristics? Well, according to Nick Morgan, a news reporter, he did say that Blatter was self-centered. He was also unwilling to step down, and he also thinks that he should be the one who reforms FIFA when he was resigning, and he was also involved in corruption scandals. To give a brief example of how he was unwilling to step down, when FIFA was raided by the US federal authorities, when the corruption was at its peak and was starting to get exposed, Blatter was still unwilling to step down. He didn't resign immediately after that. After 4 days, only then he decided to resign, which does show that Blatter was unwilling to resign. Another example was that his leadership was blended with corruption. One of the corruption was that he allowed his own committee to reject an independent report of FIFA, and he allowed them to push for FIFA's own version of report. Not only this shows that FIFA was not being objective, it also shows that Blatter was deliberately allowing corruption to happen under his own supervision. Another point is that Blatter was also accused of financial irregularities. He was accused of paying a disloyal payment to his potential successor, Platini, after Blatter's resignation. So this does show that Blatter, even at the very end, he still has some level of power to abuse it, and he even tried to use this power to cling on as a control to FIFA even when he resigned. So after all of these corruption, unwilling to step down, why does Blatter style of leadership makes this autocratic? The definition says that autocratic style says that leader holds the most power, and in this case, Blatter did have a very high level of control. He had a lot of political skills to gain control of FIFA, and a lot of decisions are also within his own control, which led to a lot of power abuse and corruption. So this will be all for my presentation. I will pass on to the next person. Thank you.
Now, let us discuss about the question 1214. In 2011, when asked about the crisis at FIFA around the rumors of financial irregularities, Blatter downplayed the allegations definitely. Which of the 5 dimensions of trust do you think Blatter was falling to them? First, what is trust? Trust is identified as belief in the integrity, character, and ability of leaders. Followers who trust the leader are willing to be vulnerable to the leader's action because they are confident that their rights and interests will not be abused. Research has identified 5 dimensions that make up the concept of trust. Integrity refers to honesty and ethical behavior. Leaders with integrity tell the truth and act according to moral principles. Second, competence. Competence is the leader's technical and interpersonal ability, the skills and knowledge required to perform effectively. Third, consistency. Consistency related to reliability and predictability. A consistent leader keeps promise and behaves in a dependable manner. Fourth, loyalty. Loyalty is willingness to protect and support others, placing the organization interest above personal gain. Lastly, openness. Openness refers to transparency and a willingness to share information and communicate honestly about problems. So, we go into the question which of the 5 dimensions of trust that I think Blatter was falling to demonstrate here. My answer is openness. In 2011, FIFA faced serious allegations of financial irregularities during the World Cup bidding process. Instead of addressing these concerns seriously, President Sepp Blatter dismissed them, meaning he downplayed the allegations and acted as if they were unimportant. This shows three main issues: lack of transparency, failure to communicate honestly about the serious issues, and avoidance of open discussion expected by stakeholders. Balanced approach clearly shows a failure in openness, which is essential for maintaining credibility and trust in leadership.
For question 12 to 15, for Infantino to succeed, what style of leadership do you think would be more effective? First of all is the democratic style. Democratic leadership style involves subordinates, delegates authorities, and encourages participation. This leadership style is crucial because FIFA has suffered from years of corruption, lack of transparency, and concentration of power among a few senior executives. Democratic style can encourage committees and stakeholders to open communication and share ideas on decision making. By this way, Infantino can promote transparency, accountability, and rebuild trust with key stakeholders such as clubs, countries, players, and also fans. Secondly is the autocratic style. Autocratic leadership style involves dictating work matters, centralizing decision-making, and limiting participation. During the reform process, Infantino must enforce new governance rules, ethical standards, and anti-corruption policies. Clear authorities and strict control can make sure that misconduct is punished and reforms are implemented consistently. However, this style should only be used when necessary because excessive autocratic style will recreate the same problem FIFA faced under Breton. And the final leadership style is laissez-faire style. This leadership style gives freedom to group members to make decisions and complete their work independently. However, this style would be inappropriate for FIFA at this stage given that FIFA has history of unethical behavior. Adopting laissez-faire style could lead to poor control, lack of accountability, and a return of corrupt practices. As a conclusion, in my opinion, I believe that the democratic leadership style is the most effective for Infantino. This leadership style can encourage transparency and trust within FIFA, and this also enables Infantino to guide FIFA towards a more ethical and sustainable future.
Now, I'll be presenting the 10-point summary. The first point is that the success of Manchester United under Sir Alex Ferguson. He led the team to numerous league titles and cups, making the club one of the most successful in football history. The second point is that Ferguson became famous for his hairdryer treatment, which involved shouting intensely at players in the dressing room. This created a strict and disciplined environment. The third point is that the media often focus on his fierceness, making good headlines, but this does not tell the whole truth about his leadership style. The fourth point is that Ferguson had a long-term plan aimed at achieving success. He always thought about building the team for the future, not just winning short-term matches. The fifth point is that he dealt with toxic team cultures and promoted a strong work ethic. He removed negative influences and encouraged players to focus on improvement. The sixth point is that he strengthened the team's identity and sense of belonging. Players felt part of a family and were motivated to work together for the club's success. The seventh point is that he shared similarities with Steve Jobs, even though their approaches were different. Both emphasized vision, innovation, and motivating their teams to achieve greatness. The eighth point is that Ferguson adjusted his management style to suit individual players. He understood that each player is different and used different methods to bring out their best. The ninth point is that he valued details, remembering all support staff names and taking time to converse with them. This attention to detail helped build a loyalty and a strong team culture. The 10th point is that after retirement, Ferguson continued contributing to education by teaching executive education at Harvard Business School, sharing his leadership experience with future leaders.
So everyone, in this section, I will present about leadership theory that support Ferguson Act. To begin with, leadership theory explains how and why certain individuals become leaders. It focuses on the characteristics and behaviors that leaders can develop in order to become more effective. As expressed by Robbins and Coulter, whether or not a leader is effective does not depend totally on the leader himself, but on how leaders are able to adapt their behavior to their respective followers and situations. Let me explain about the leadership theory that support Ferguson Act. In my opinion, the best theory that support Ferguson Act will be situational leadership theory. This theory was developed by Hersey and Blanchard, where the theory assumes that there is no best style of leadership. On the contrary, the leader has to adapt the style to the ability and willingness of their followers. The first style is telling. Telling is the high task and low relationship approach, whereby roles are clearly defined by the leader and instructions are given directly. This style occurs when discipline needs to be instigated and compliance has to be immediate. This type of style was demonstrated in Ferguson shouting at certain players and making sure that when necessary, things were tightened up. This means expectations are well defined and standards should be strictly followed. Next is selling style. In the selling style, which is high task combined with high relationship behavior, direction is combined with support and explanation. Ferguson, for instance, instituted a strong work ethic and set the standard by being the first to arrive and the last to leave. In this way, players followed instruction but also understood the reason behind the instructions, which increased their commitment. Thirdly, the participating style focuses on low task and high relationship behavior. In this style, leaders and followers share in decision making, with the main role of the leader to facilitate and communicate. Ferguson applied this by understanding how to get the best from each individual. He knew the names not only of the players but also of the staff members, since it helps to build trust, motivation, and strong personal relationship. Lastly, the style that evokes low task and low relationship behavior is the delegating style. This is used whenever the followers are experienced and capable. Ferguson did this differently with players, letting the seniors who are highly capable to have more responsibility and freedom. This implies trust and independence in experienced players. To wrap my part, actions in support of situational leadership theory are strongly reflected in what Ferguson did, employing telling, selling, participating, and delegating styles, which means acting in accordance with the situational demands and the individual constituted an indication that effective leadership relies on behavioral adaptations according to followers' capabilities and needs. That's all from me. Thank you.
Now, I'm going to discuss the question 1217, which is what leadership traits do you see being demonstrated in the case? So, first is visionary leadership. When Ferguson arrived at Manchester United in 1986, the club was struggling with poor performance, with discipline, and a lack of professionalism. He introduced a clear long term vision to transform the club into a world class organization, focusing not only on winning but also on building strong values and culture. One of his earliest actions was changing the unhealthy drinking culture among players and setting strict expectations for discipline, punctuality, and commitment. He also introduced professional standards, such as requiring players to wear blazers with the club badge in public, which helped build pride, loyalty, and a sense of belonging. According to Robbins and Coulter, visionary leaders provide long-term direction and align organization members towards shared goals. Ferguson's leadership clearly reflects this style. In his book Leading, he emphasized that leadership is about shaping culture and planning for the future. His strong focus on youth development ensure long-term success and reduce reliance on individual star players. Second, motivating an individualized approach. Ferguson understood that players respond differently to leadership. He adapted his style based on individual needs, reflecting situational leadership. Some players respond well to a strict hairdryer treatment, while others perform better with encouragement and personal guidance. This flexibility shows strong emotional intelligence. He paid close attention to players' emotion and communication style, allowing him to motivate effectively, build trust, and resolve conflict. According to Goldman, emotionally intelligent leaders improve team motivation and performance, qualities that Ferguson consistently demonstrates. His individualized approach made players feel valued, increasing their commitment and loyalty to the club. Finally, attention to detail. Ferguson's leadership extended beyond tactics. He made the efforts to learn the names of all of staff at all levels, showing respect for everyone in the organization. This creates a strong sense of belonging and teamwork. Management theory suggests that attention to people and operations strengthen motivation and trust. In leading, Ferguson explained that small action had helped build culture and identify problems early. contributing to better decision-making and long-term success. In conclusion, Ferguson visionary leadership, individualized motivation, and attention to detail were crucial to its success. These qualities show that effective management involves long-term planning, emotion intelligence, and respect for every member of the organization. Together, they enabled Sir Alex Ferguson to lead Manchester United successfully for over 2 decades. That's all for my part. Now I will pass to the next person.
Before we analyze Ferguson, we need to understand our tool, emotional intelligence or EI. It's built on three core competencies. First, understanding your own emotions. This means a leader is aware of what they're feeling and why. This self-awareness helps maintain calm, avoid overreactions, and lead to better decision making under pressure. Second, understanding others. This is the ability to read the emotional state of team members, who is stressed, who is motivated, who is upset or confused. This insight is the foundation for effective communication. Third, adjusting how you talk and act. Based on the first two, a leader must flex their communications and management style. Sometimes you need to be firm, other times supportive. The goal is singular to do what helps the team the most. Before we analyze Ferguson, we need to understand our tool, emotional intelligence or EI. It's built on three core competencies. First, understanding your own emotions. This means a leader is aware of what they're feeling and why. This self-awareness helps maintain calm, avoid overreactions, and lead to better decision making under pressure. Second, understanding others. This is the ability to read the emotional state of team members, who is stressed, who is motivated, who is upset or confused. This insight is the foundation for effective communication. Third, adjusting how you talk and act. Based on the first two, a leader must flex their communications and management style. Sometimes you need to be firm, other times supportive. The goal is singular to do what helps the team the most. So, how did Sir Alex Ferguson demonstrate this emotional intelligence in practice? We can break it down into four key behaviors. Point 1. He did not have one style for everyone. He mastered managing by individual. Some players needed the hairdryer, others needed an arm around the shoulder. What seems like inconsistency was actually highly conscious tailoring based on deep understanding. Point 2. He was strict only when needed. The infamous hairdryer treatment wasn't his default mode. He knew when to use it as a precise tool to enforce standards, not as an emotional outburst. Point 3. He took time to know his staff. His focus extended far beyond the starting 11. He made an effort to learn the names of all support staff and took time to talk to them. This allowed him to sense the emotional pulse of the entire organization's building loyalty. Point 4. He solved issues quickly. When friction or disciplinary problems arose within the teams, he addressed them immediately. This prevented negative emotions from festering and protected the long-term harmony and focus of the dressing room. Bringing it all together, how did emotional intelligence ultimately translate into victories? For four main reasons. First, players respected him. This respect came not just from his win, but from the demonstrated depth of his understanding and perceived fairness in his dealing with individuals. Second, the team stayed united. By resolving conflicts swiftly and understanding different members' needs, he kept a squad of superstars aligned toward a common goal. Third, he knew how to motivate different personalities. This is the highest expression of EI's adjusting your action competency. He could unlock the best version of each person. Fourth, he built long-term success. EI was the bedrock of shaping a positive team culture. This culture had longevity and laid the foundation for Manchester United dynasty.
I'm Eunice. So now I'm going to discuss about question 12-19. What do you see as the possible of varying the leadership approach with different players? So my first answer is time consuming can cause weakens unity. Second, difficulty adapting to inconsistent leadership. Third, perception of unfairness or favoritism. Last, increased stress and discomfort. Now I'll explain each point in detail.
First and foremost, time-consuming, which can weaken teams' unity. This is because the coach needs to spend a lot of time to think and decide what types of feedback should be given to different players. Although this allows the coach to understand each player more deeply, it may require the coach to spend more time on individual development and adjustment. As a result, this may reduce the time spent on improving overall team performance and making it more difficult to build a strong sense of unity within the team. For example, if a coach applies laissez-faire leadership to key players while using a more directive coaching leadership for new players, it may cause the team to have a different opinion between key players and new players. In addition, this will also increase the pressure on the coach, as he needs to provide different feedback when applying different leadership styles for each player. Next, some players may find it difficult to adapt to multiple leadership approaches. They may feel confused when the coach communicates differently with different players. A lack of consistency in leadership style can demotivate team members as they don't receive a clear and consistent guidance from the coach. As bridge-line coaching mentioned, leaders often struggle to get their team members on the same page, which can lead to misunderstanding and hinder progress. When different players experience different leadership styles, they may not have similar experiences within the team. For example, new players may receive more feedback, while others receive a very little and may even feel ignored. These differences can reduce common topics for communication and increase confusion among players. Third, players may feel that the situation is unfair if they receive different punishment or responses for the same mistake. For example, when two players are doing the wrong mistake, but only one is being criticized, as this is a new player in the team, the punished player may feel emotionally unbalanced. This sense of unfairness can lead to frustrations and develop a negative mindset, such as jealousy. Such emotion can damage the relations among team members and worsen overall team dynamic. According to the Aloha International Employment, favoritism can also damage team dynamic and lower team productivity. Lastly, using different types of leadership will also increase stress and discomfort among the players. As mentioned earlier, difficulty adapting to multiple leadership styles can lead to confusion. This confusion will make them feel pressure as they are unsure about what leadership style will be applied to them and what kind of punishment will be waiting for them. These unclear expectations and unpredictable treatment can contribute to anxiety within the team environment, ultimately affecting player performance and well-being. In conclusion, different leadership approaches may help in some way. It can also create several problems when applied within the same team. Coaches should consider whether consistent or inconsistent leadership is more suitable for different types of team. Thank you.